College. We're going to be talking about your experiences during war and right before it today for the Holocaust, for our oral histories of the Holocaust studies.
Okay.
If you could just say your name.
My name is Bertha Schwarz, and I am from, I was born in Belgium, in Antwerp, Belgium, and I was 7 years old when the war broke out. In Antwerp, I lived in Antwerp with my family, my mother, father, my sister Marka, and my sister Bella. Wait, can you just stop a minute? Can you just stop a minute?
Okay. Last time you mentioned your, it was your mother's parents that came from Germany?
Yes.
Okay. What year did they move to Belgium?
In 1939, they came from Germany to Belgium. That was literally the last minute before the borders were closed for anybody to get out of Germany.
Did they have to rush to get ready, or had they been planning it?
Well, they were hoping to come to Palestine, where they had 3 children, but they just didn't make it. They didn't get they needed to have a visa to get into Palestine because of the British that were there, and they just didn't get the right paper on time, so they had to escape to Belgium.
Okay. Did they pack up their things and bring things with them, or did they just come?
No, they left most of their things and just with the suitcases, and that's it. Maybe some jewelry and some Judaica stuff like, Friday night candle holder and things like that. But the majority of the things they left, everything.
Do you remember them talking about how it was in Germany before they left?
Yes, I think it was quite clear to me as a young child that things were getting worse and worse. And my mother kind of prepared us that our grandparents will be coming to stay, to be in Antwerp, and I was very glad about that they were together. But I don't think that I understood that they left because of what was going on in Germany. I knew that things weren't going right in Belgium, but not so much of what was going on in Germany. I guess I was a little too young for this.
Yeah. So, did you know that things were getting worse and worse, or did you just think that things were going to stay the same, kind of, at that point when?
Well, the decision to leave Belgium when Hitler came to when the Germany invaded Belgium, that happened very, very fast.
Yeah. Like, did you know in advance it was going to happen?
No.
No. Did your family know, do you think, or do you?
No. When they walked in, which was May 10th, 1940, it happened quite suddenly. And a lot of people, thousands of people, tried to escape from Belgium.
That day, or
yes, a few days. And what happened to us was that we had to pack whatever was. My father packed boxes with food, and my mother packed suitcases with clothes.
Was this the day that they invaded?
That was a few days after.
On the 18th? I know that
May 10th.
May 10th was the day they came. And you were in Antwerp, so that was the right where they came in, right?
That's right. Right when they came in.
Did you see any of them when they came in?
No, I don't remember seeing them in German. I know one thing. I just remember that we went to the train station. My parents, my sisters, and my grandparents. There were thousands and thousands of people at the train station in Antwerp trying to get on a train that was going to southern France. And I remember that my parents tried, because it was a lot of commotion and it was not very well organized. And so they pushed us through the windows of the train in order to get on the train. So, and my grandparents came, and we were lucky to have gotten on the train at all.
Yeah. Like when you were when your parents were packing things,
Yes.
did you get to pack anything of your own, or did they just take care of everything as quickly?
We were mostly concerned about packing our own clothes, you know.
Clothes?
And I think my mother put a few layers on us.
Yeah.
And yes, we took some toys, but very small things to play on the train, but nothing very big. We couldn't take a lot of things.
Do you remember the most important thing to you that you packed?
No, I think some toys, that's it. It was a very chaotic stage. And so you knew that you had to escape. And that was the first time I really got the feeling that something was very, very wrong, and something wasn't normal. And you had to move quickly. And I was asked not to ask, I was told not to ask too many questions. They couldn't explain to me, we just had to go, move on, and try to, as quickly as possible.
What was that like for you as a 7-year-old?
Scary, very scary, because then first of all, when we got to the train station, there were thousands of people, and with children, and I was afraid that I will lose them, and how will I find them again? So we were holding for dear life to each other.
Were you keep taking care of your sisters too?
Yeah, that was, from then on, I had that was my responsibility, to care of my sisters. And then, you know, the train station in Antwerp is very big, and in order to get on the train, we had to go some stairs up to the platform. And there, the train was waiting, but you didn't know which platform exactly. So we rushed where everybody else was going, and we got on the train. My father went back and got some more boxes of food because he couldn't take everything. Mm-hmm. We lived not too far from the train station. Everything was within walking distance. There were no cars, no bikes, nothing. So you had to carry your suitcases and your belongings and all of that. And of course, I was 6 years old, 7. My middle sister was 4. There was 3 years difference between us. Mm-hmm. And my younger sister was 3 at the time. So we really were small children. Yeah. So yes, and then he went back, and he luckily came back on time with some food that we had from the delicatessen store. So we were lucky that way, that we had some food with us, and some liquid water or whatever they had. I think mineral water was very fashionable in Belgium.
Did you know that you were running away for a long time, or did you?
Well, you really didn't know what was going on. You know, I mean, you knew that if you stayed when the German invaded, that it was very dangerous. That we knew, that it was dangerous to stay and we had to escape. And that was the first time that we really got to be refugees. Really, that was the beginning of it.
What about your aunts and uncles that lived in Antwerp?
My uncles, there are some of them that came on the train. We never saw them again. We never saw any of them until after the war. Those that survived, many of them did not.
Did you get to say goodbye to anyone?
Please?
Did you get to say goodbye to anyone when you were
No, nobody said goodbye to anybody. We just, you know, I mean, the family knew that we all had to get out. Some of them were on the train, but I know that I never saw them again, because when we arrived to our destination 8 days later, nobody was there. Now, I will describe to you a little bit the trip on the train. The train left in the evening, and the following day the Germans were bombarding the train. And we had to get off the train. And so we had to hide in the trenches along the train. And some of the train was bombarded. And so we had to get wait until the train whistled. Then everybody was trying to get on the train again. But the train was shorter, and so they had more people coming in. And for 8 days we traveled like that. The train was bombarded every single day. Of course, the sanitary conditions were very poor on the train. So when the train stopped somewhere, you had to get off, go to the bathroom. The Red Cross was waiting to give us water and some food, but not enough for all of us. And many of the people were separated, their families, because there was not enough room on the train. In short, by the time 8 days later, when we arrived to a small town in France, half of the train was gone, and so was half of the people. So we were very lucky that we still stayed together. My parents, my two sisters, and my grandparents. But nobody else of the family stayed with us. We were all on our own. When we arrived to that village, which is called Villemur, in southern France, which was in the, it was called the unoccupied zone in France. And I have here a map which will show you, this is where it's blue, this is the unoccupied zone. This is where the Vichy government was in control. And the yellow part is where the German invaded France. Here, this is Paris, right here. So above it is Belgium. Number 4 here is Belgium. And number 5 is prohibited zone. Okay, this is also part of France. Number 3 is a reserved zone, which is Luxembourg, and number 1 is Germany. So it kind of gives you an idea of the blue part. The number 9 was under the Italian occupation, number 9. And number 8 was demilitarized zone, which was between Italy, between France and Switzerland.
And,
which later on I will talk about.
okay. So when you were on the train, you were going through the occupied part. No, that's before the Germans had occupied France, right?
Well, no, yeah, that was before the German invaded France. First they did Luxembourg and Belgium and Holland, and then they came to France. So we just escaped, went through France before the German occupied France. We arrived in the, actually I think it must have been already occupied, but maybe they didn't stop the trains yet. So we could still go through southern France. It was that early, in 1940. I can tell you dates about when France was invaded by Germany, but I don't have it right now in front of me.
Well, it must have been in May when you were traveling. Do you remember the countryside, looking at the windows?
Beautiful countryside. As a matter of fact, I have a book that was published about a year ago about, it was the escape of the Belgian Jews to southern France, and why did they go there? There you have a lot of pictures showing you exactly how the Belgian Jews and non-Jews escaped, because they also didn't want to be under the Germany. So many of the Belgian non-Jews also escaped at the same time. But they went back, many of them went back, whereas, and even some members of my family, I know, that escaped different routes. Not everybody go by train, some of them had cars, some of them even with horses and buggies, was whatever means you could travel to get out. This is what was happening. But of course, the German followed them. You see that what it is.
Mm-hmm. So when you got to this small town in France, what happened?
Well, we were taken off. We were told that that's the last stop, and then we had to get off the train, and they took us into a school gymnasium, and the Red Cross had beds and blankets for cots and blankets and food. It was the first time that we took a shower. We got some towels, and we were just sitting there. We didn't know what will happen next. So what they did really is they divided us all and found quite dilapidated apartments for us. So my grandparents and our family got an apartment in the center of town, which was next to a river, the town river,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where we stayed. Of course, my father couldn't go to work. He didn't have any legal papers, so we were dependent on the help of the Red Cross to give us money, and of course my parents took some money with them. It was very dangerous for my parents to go and outside to be seen, because the French gendarmes were in charge, because the Vichy government was collaborating with the French, and so that if they saw a refugee which could be recognized right away, they asked for documents, which we always called papers. You had to have legal papers. So if you didn't have any legal papers, they would arrest you. So my mother taught me some words in French, because I was speaking Flemish, and I spoke German with her, with my parents. So she knew French because she studied it in Germany, and she taught me words in, especially potatoes, tomatoes, bread, anything and she gave me some money, and I went to they had an open market, not far, and I just was buying food and bringing it back to home.
What was your apartment? Do you remember what the apartment looked like?
It was dark. It was very simple. The stove was not, it was kind of a French stove, very, very old. And I don't know if you had to use wood. I think it was kind of with wood still. You used to cook with wood there. This is how old-fashioned it was. I think they had some curtains, but nothing very bad. And my mother used to wash the clothes in the river. She used to go down there. The apartment was on the second floor. There were very narrow stairs going down, 2 flights, and so she had to carry the clothes, and she used to wash it there with some soap, which I bought in the market there, and we used to hang it inside the apartment.
Mm-hmm. Did you still observe Shabbat?
Oh yeah, we had candles, and Friday night we observed Shabbat. And of course there was no challah there, so we had French bread. My sister remembers that we even celebrated Hanukkah there. We had, I don't think that there were Hanukkah candles, but there were candles for Hanukkah.
Do you remember any happy times there in that apartment?
Happy time, yeah. I mean, we didn't go to school. We didn't go to school there and we played along the river. And of course, it was always don't talk to strangers, don't talk to anybody, nobody should know who you are, don't tell where we live. I mean, it was a lot of instruction of what not to do. And you had to be very careful.
What was that like for you as a little girl?
For me, it was not very easy. It was quite sad, It was very sad, as a matter of fact. But I knew that it was a matter of survival. And if I would say something that is wrong, then I would feel very bad about it. So, because that means that I give the story, I give the secret of who we are, and that might be very dangerous. Of course, I was asking, why do I have to go shopping? Why can't you go? Why do you make me do all those things, And for instance, my sister wanted to play next to the river. And so I always heard my mother say, watch on your sister, be careful, they shouldn't run in the water, they shouldn't, all of those things. Of course, we didn't know how to swim, none of us. So these were the things that was very early I was in charge.
Were there any
as the oldest child.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember, did any of the other people who left Belgium stay in that town with you?
We're not in contact with too many people. That was another thing, you couldn't meet on the street. Because that was a rule also, that you couldn't be in a group together. That was a rule that the French had as far as having some kind of a group meeting or anything like that. You were not allowed to talk to each other. There were some very strict rules about that.
Do you remember meeting any French Jews?
In the French school?
Or French Jews in the town?
In French Jews in town? No, there were no French Jews in town. Not that I know of. The Red Cross was the only place where you could get some help. There were some Jewish organizations, French Jewish organizations, that were concerned about the Jews, the refugees that came from other countries. And they were quite well organized, so that they were also helping us financially. But that was for a short time. Because later on they were caught too. Mm-hmm. So that didn't last for very long.
You said you didn't have school, but did your parents make you...
Yes, my father wanted very much that we should know something about Jewish studies, so he was the one who taught us all of that. And of course, my mother couldn't teach us hardly any French. And other than that, reading, but it was not, you didn't have any French books, you didn't have anything like that. So even French would have taught me how to read it, Mm-hmm. But it didn't last very long, because my father one day walked out, and he was arrested, and by the French gendarmes. We lived there in Villemure maybe half a year, not longer than that. And we were arrested by the French gendarmes, and they came with my father to the apartment where we stayed, and they all put us into a camp, into an intern camp. That camp was called Brenz, B-R-E-N-Z, which was, there were about 250, 300 people there, families, children, everybody. Gypsies, whatever they could find. And I said here, we lived until September 1940, we lived in Villemure. And from September 1940 to April 1941, we stayed for 7 months in that camp. My sister, the idea of that camp was to gather all the people that were arrested and eventually deport them to Drancy and from Drancy to Auschwitz. My younger sister got very sick, and she had diphtheria, which is a very contagious disease. And so the camp was empty, but we were quarantined. About 15 people, 2 families were left there. My father, who decided that he is going to escape, and so he escaped from that camp and went by train to a town where they had a Jewish organization there, and there he got false papers for all of us. What it means, false papers, is that you had French names. All of us got French names, and date of birth and everything was false. They had they were very active there in the French resistance was very active in that town. The name of the town is Montauban. I don't know if you want to know how to spell it, but
Yeah, sounds good. Is it M-O, how do you spell it?
you spell it Montauban. Okay.
And, so what was it like for you living in that camp?
In that camp, you got food twice a day, in the morning, in the evening. You had to stand in line. You got an army musket, that means you had, a cup, and it was like, not a bowl, but it was more, the way the army had this kind of a dish there, a fork and a knife, all made of metal. You had to stand in line. You got a cup of soup and some bread, and that was it. You were in barracks. The barracks had, there were 3 flights high. Children and adults all lived together. It turned out to be winter time, and so you had one big stove in the middle of the barrack, which was heated with wood, and it smelled something terrible. You literally could choke from it. You had blankets, it was straw mattresses, and we were playing, the children. Of course it got very cold, so we all were huddling in there with my grandparents. And there was no way to take showers or anything. You just had to go outside. You had these long faucets with sinks there and some soap or no soap. This is the only way you could rinse your dishes or wash your face or anything like that. Sanitary conditions as far as Baltimore, there was just terrible. People got sick. Lots of people got sick. And my parents got very worried, and one day my father decided that he's going to escape and go to the farm to get us some milk and some butter he wanted for us.
The security, what was the security like?
The security was like a prison. You had these high posts where the guards were standing, all around. So at night he escaped. It was a barbed wire. I don't know how he did it, but they were not electrified. So, and he went to the village and he got some milk, and because we didn't drink anything milk, I think he got some eggs and some butter, and he came back and they noticed him. So he came back to the barrack, and he was hiding on the top barrack there, and for 2 months he didn't get out there. And he got a beard, and we had to make sure that he should get some food. Because so from the ration, you see the food was rationed there, so we were always hungry. So they were worried that we would get sick as children, and so this is why he did that. You have to remember, my parents were, when that happened, they're both the same age, and they were 26 years old. They had 3 children. So that was very young.
How old were your grandparents?
Please?
How old were your grandparents?
In their 50s. Not too old.
What was it like for you to have your father hiding like that in the top barrack?
Well, we were all very afraid that somebody will denounce him. You got compensated for if you denounce somebody. So we were very afraid that the people in the barrack, we were about 50 people in one barrack. And so we were afraid that somebody will denounce him, you know. So there was a lot of anxiety all the time. You didn't know how the guard will treat the children. Some of them were beaten up. It was cool. It was cool, and that was the French, that was not the Germans.
You know, anything like that ever happened to your family with the beatings?
No, but I saw some. And I saw some people dying in the camp. Not necessarily from old age. It was more from hunger, from disease. They had an infirmary, but it could take maybe 4 or 5 people, that's it, no more. And we were 500 there. And that was a very small camp compared to some other. You know, there were about 30 camps only in southern France, interned camp. I'm not talking about the German that in northern France. I'm talking about the unoccupied Vichy government who were collaborating with the Germans. That's what was so terrible. So when we left, when my father came back from Montauban with the paper, the camp was emptied already. So the guards were not so careful, and we noticed that when it was time for them to eat or to drink, then they were not around. So he came back to the camp, and we all escaped. And so we ended up going back to Montauban. And in Montauban, we were told that we are going to go to a small village, and this is where we're going to hide. So the French resistance and the American Joint had an office, and they were trying to help the Jews to hide. And so they gave us the name of the village where we're supposed to go. In that village, there were, when we arrived there, the mayor was very nice, and he accepted, he received us very nicely, and he gave us, showed us where we are going to live. That was a chalet. They call it in French a chalet, which really is like a private home. It was about 2 miles from the center of town.
How did you travel? How did you travel to Montauban?
With a train.
You got on a train?
Yeah. See, okay, so now let me just describe to you a little bit. When we escaped from the camp, we were waiting for a train. Okay, my job was to teach my sisters to learn their new names. So all of us had to learn the new names. The danger was that each train, there were French gendarmes checking if you had the legal papers. So we had to remember our name. And my parents my grandparents, they all had the names. My mother told me that I had not to talk to anybody, and if people ask questions, not to answer, because they were afraid that we will tell the story who we were. And so it was always, don't talk to strangers, and don't run around, and don't make yourself notice, this kind of a thing, and be quiet, and so on. So the gendarme really came, and they checked, and it went through well. When we arrived to the train station, we were hiding somewhere, not in the waiting room of the train station, but behind it. And so until the train came. And then we jumped on the train because you had gendarmes also on the platform of these trains. watching everybody. So it was really a matter of time until they would notice you. So we had to rush quickly on the train, and when we arrived to Montauban, we had to walk to that office where my father was there before, and they arranged for us to go to that village. The only thing was that they told us that we can no longer stay with our grandparents. It would be too dangerous for all of us to be in one place. So, okay. So my grandparents were sent somewhere else, and my family was sent somewhere else. So when we arrived to that village, there was no water. And the way you cooked there was okay. Let's stop it for a minute. Have me again?
Yeah.
The same spot, right?
You're back on.
Just going. Okay, so you got to the French village, which was
Montauban.
Montauban.
All right, and my grandparents were separated from us. And they were sent to another village, which we did not know where. And I never saw them again. I never saw my grandparents again. We never saw them again.
Did you get to say goodbye?
No, I didn't say goodbye to them. I didn't think that we won't see them again, you know. And so we were hoping that through correspondence we will find out where they were, but we never did. We arrived to that village and to Orgueil. And there in Orgueil, which is Orgueil, okay? That was April 1941.
Was that the one with the mayor that showed you?
Yes, right. The mayor told us where the chalet is. There was no water, no toilet were outside, no heat. And this is where I started, my sister and I started to walk to school again, but it was 2 miles each way. The school was, we found out that there were 5 Jewish families that were hiding in that village. The farmer we lived next to a farmer, and he had some cows and geese. And my job was to go to to get some water from the well. And these geese were running after me. And I was so scared of those geese with that long necks, you know. So I filled up the bucket, but I only came back with half of it because I was running so far to get the water. And you needed the water for cooking and also for bathing, because there were no showers there. No water, no showers. In basin, you had this big basin. My mother used to heat the water that I schlepped from the well and she put it in this French, you had a chimney, and below you had these old-fashioned, like the pilgrims when they came, you know, these how they used to cook with wood. And so this is how she heated the water. And of course we didn't wash every day. I think once a week was good enough. And so that was and we walked to school. My job was on the way back to bring a loaf of bread, baguette, it's called baguette. And sometimes they didn't have, we got rations also, because everybody had ration. Of course, the villagers were not too keen on sharing their ration with us, because we were refugees, so we took away from them, so we didn't get always. So one day my mother decided that she's going to send me with my younger sister to the next village. And so And she said, you're going to go through the vineyards. There were lots of vineyards there in that area. And so my sister and I, we were already, maybe I was 8 and she was 5, something like that. So she told me, go to the next village and maybe the baker will be nice to you and give you more bread. So my sister and I went through that village, through the vineyards, back to the next village, which was, I think, about 5 miles away. And she didn't want us to go on the main road because she was afraid that somebody will see us. And so I went to the next village and I found the bakery, and they were nice enough to give us some bread. But my younger sister was very hungry, so she started to eat half of the loaf. No, so I got very upset with her because how can I come home and I don't have all the loaf of bread that we needed for all of us, you know. So my worry was that I did after coming back from school 2 miles. So I went another 5 to go to get the bread. I was afraid it will get dark and I won't find my way back. So that's what really was a very big concern for me. And I made it. We came back, I found my way, and everything was fine.
Was it dark when you got back?
Please?
Was it dark when you got back?
Almost. It was almost dark, right.
Do you remember your parents' reaction with the bread when?
Yeah, I mean, they were very happy that I got some bread, but look here, it was only for 1 day, you know. The next day you still needed some more.
But they weren't upset with your sister for eating half of it?
I don't think that they were quite upset. My sister was not easy to deal with. I think she didn't understand what was going on, and she was quite stubborn. And she had some difficulty with that whole change. And it was hard for her. It was very hard. For my younger sister, she was too young to understand. But my middle sister understood, but she didn't understand why. And it was very difficult for her to comprehend what was really happening.
Did you try to explain to her?
I tried, but I didn't have a lot of patience for this because I myself was distressed, you know, so I kind of expected my parents to do that. I had to take her to school with me every day.
Did you go to French school?
Yeah, and this way I learned French and so on. Well, they wanted me, the nuns wanted me to go to church.
So it was a Catholic school?
It was yeah, and I didn't want to go in. So they told me if I don't go to church, I'll get bad grades, and I didn't like that. And so, sure enough, I didn't get. I got some good grades, but not what I deserved because they said, you know, they wanted me to go into the Catholic Church, and I said I'm not allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what your favorite subject was there in school?
In school, history. I always liked history, really from small. I really liked history a lot. And you learn a lot of French history. Let me tell you the start from the first grade on already was there. Mm. And I was glad that I learned French, and so that was very good. And they were very concerned about penmanship. That was always, the French are very, very concerned about penmanship. So I learned that, and I learned geography, and I learned about the area. And yeah, I got to speak French quite fluently.
Were the other students mean to you, or did they know that you were a refugee?
Yeah, they knew that I was from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The nuns made sure the teachers did not bother too much. You see, we were strangers there, so they really didn't make an effort to get to know us too well. Mm-hmm. That was fine with me because I was already trained that not to talk and not to say. So, you know, I did my thing. I went back with my sister. We went back home, and that was it.
Did they know that you were Jewish?
I think they knew. Yes, they did know. They did know that we were Jewish. But because they wanted me to go to church, I wasn't going to church, so of course they knew that I was Jewish, you know. The other children, there were another family with two children, but they were smaller children. Then I was the oldest one, my sister and I, and the other ones were younger children. Two. They also came from Antwerp. Yes, so that went on like that for until August 1942.
So you were there for a year?
Please?
You were there for a year? Or?
That's fine. From April 1941 to August 1942. Well, August 1942, this is when the Germans started very intensely to arrest and started the whole program of the final solution, which they call the final solution of the Jews. And one day the gendarme knocked at the door and came to pick up my father. And so my father was arrested.
Were you there when it happened?
Yeah, I was there. They knocked at the door in the evening and they told him, come with us. And so he was gone. So, but we found out that he communicated with us that he is in a labor camp. And so he was there, and my mother took me once and my younger sister once to visit him. And
do you know what camp it was?
yeah, I know the name of the camp is, it's called Sepfond. It's SEPTFONDS. SEPTFONDS, right?
Did you think that he was gonna, that they were gonna let him go from the camp, or did you know what was gonna happen after they took him away?
We really didn't know yet that what really was happening as far. We knew that he won't come back. I knew right away that no. But I was hoping that it would be the men. They only arrested the men first, and then the children and the mothers and children. So I knew it was a matter of time until they will come to pick us up. We knew that.
Were you really upset when they took your father away, or did you hold it in?
Oh no, I was upset, but you know, and I think I was very upset. But I still had hope because you know, maybe something will happen and we'll be together again. This was you always had that hope that it can't get worse, you know, but it did get worse.
Yeah. When you were still in that house, did you have your own rooms? And
yes, the room, there was a kitchen, and the kitchen and the living room were one. And then you had upstairs 2 bedrooms, I think 2 or 3, 2 bedrooms. Yeah, my parents had 1 bedroom, and my sister and I had one bedroom. And there was quite a big yard, and there were 4 trees around. My father went to learn how to swim in the river there, and I know that he disappeared once in a while to go swimming. And for my mother it was very difficult. But you have to think, in the meantime, we go, and when you get clothes, and when you get shoes, and how the winter clothes and summer clothes for all 3 of us, was very, very difficult to get all of that. And I really don't know where she got it. And she never talked about this. So I really don't know how she managed with us growing up and getting clothes for all of us, you know, in the winter and summer. But somehow we had some clothes. I think the clothes that I had, she gave to my sister. I don't know where I got, you know, from where I got how she had all shoes for them.
Did you get any of your mother's old clothes? Or?
No, I never wore any of her things.
Did you celebrate holidays when you were in the house?
Yes, yes, I remember the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Friday night, and my father used to sing. He was a chazan, so he was, he was singing all the songs, and so, yeah, but you all had to hide the candles so nobody should see, who passed by. And the farmer next to it was a very big anti-Semite, and he really didn't help the situation. So when my father was arrested, there was a rabbi that came there to visit these camps, and he wanted to find out from the men where the mothers and children were. So he got in touch with my mother, and he told her that she better make arrangement to get out of that place, and he recommended that she should send us away, and that she should go in hiding. That means work for a French family, a Jewish French family, as a maid or something like that. Because we knew that the gendarme will come to pick up the mothers and children. So one day my mother packed up a little suitcase for me and my sister.
Your middle sister?
My middle sister. My younger sister got sick again, so she stayed home. And she brought me to the bus, and she gave me money, and she said, "This is a one-way ticket, and you go back when you get to that town where we came in Montauban, you go back to the same place that we were." Mind you, that was a year later, and I had to remember where to go. Go back there, and somebody will be waiting for you. And I said goodbye to my mother with my sister, and I had no idea where I'm going to go. She told me that a man will be waiting for us at that office of the French Resistance office, and that somebody will take us to Marseille. I had no idea where Marseille was and how far it was, how I'll get there, nothing. So there was a village that had a bus going once a day, and so I took my sister by the hand and we came to Montauban, and I really remembered where it was.
And, just to go back a little bit, when you remember when you visited your father in the camp?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, he was behind barbed wire, and so you couldn't even hold his hand, but at least I saw him, and he talked to me. But he was very anxious to save us. So he talked to my mother about what to do and the plans, and don't worry, I'll come back. And, he wanted very much she should be hopeful, and he was very concerned about his family. And so that was, these visits were very tense. And we had to walk about 5 or 6 miles from the train that we took a train to go to that camp, and we maybe stayed there for half an hour or an hour, and then we left again.
If you were caught outside the camp, would you have been arrested?
Yes, definitely. My mother took a big chance to go. So she took me once and left my 2 sisters by themselves in that chalet. And then she took my younger sister, and she didn't have a chance to take my middle sister. So my middle sister remembered that very well, that she wasn't taken. And that, for her, it's a sad part of what she remembered. And when we arrived to that office, it was closed, nobody there. So here I was standing with my sister with my small suitcase on the street, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have money to go back. So I stood there and I started to cry, and a man passed by there, just by chance, or maybe not by chance, and he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because I'm supposed to meet somebody," and I didn't have any name. And he said, "What's your name?" And I told him.
Did you tell him your French name or your?
No, my regular Bertha, that was my maiden name. And he said, "I'm looking for you," just like that. And so I said, "But you know what? I really didn't know if to go with him or not, but what else could I have done?" So I went with him, and he took us to the train station. On the train, and it was a very long trip, about 6 hours or so. I fell asleep into Marseille. When we arrived to Marseille, it was already morning, and at the train station there were lots of gendarmes looking for paper, and sure enough, they asked to see our papers. Again, I got a new name. I had no idea the names of these, but the man handed me some papers. I had to teach my sister new names, and they arrested him.
Is he Jewish?
I don't even know. Well, you see what they did in France, French resistance, the Jewish organizations that joined, you had a lot of messengers. And these messengers, they were transporting children from one area to another. And they were, of course, all volunteer, and they were very gutsy. And so he was arrested, this man was arrested. They asked me who he is. I already learned all the tricks of the train, and I say, "He's my father." Well, he didn't have the same name. We didn't have the same name. So boom, that was it. So the French gendarme took us, my sister and I, to a hotel in Marseille. In Marseille, they arrested so many people. That was 1942. And they used hotels to gather those people until the train was ready for the next transport to Drancy, and from Drancy to Auschwitz. I don't know if you know something about Drancy, but So my sister and I by ourselves were there in that hotel in Marseille. And all by ourselves.
Did you have a room to yourself?
No, but you know, they use these hotel rooms and pile them up into 3 flights, bunk beds, you know, with strong mattresses and so on, and they fed you whatever there was. Of course, everybody, the older people grabbed all the food, so we children had, and we weren't that many children there, very few children. And, you know, I didn't have no sheets, no blanket, yes, no sheets, no towels, no place where to wash. I mean, it was temporary. Everything was clogged up, sanitary, nothing worked, they didn't fix it. It was, you just had to wait until, who knows what happened, you know. We stayed there for 2 weeks, my sister and I, and I think we're very lucky that there was no transport going. They didn't have a train ready.
That's the only reason you stayed?
No, we were waiting, and then out of the blue moon, two boys came from, they were Orthodox Jews, with payers like that, Hasidic Jews, and they were looking for us.
Yes.
In short, we were supposed to get there, but we didn't get there, so they found out that we were missing. And
we're gonna have to stop for the tape, but we'll pick up right there.
It's over?
You said you were saying that 2 boys came looking for you.
Yeah, and so they were looking for us, and they took us to a children's home, and it was a rabbi. His name was Zalman Schneerson. He was a cousin of the very famous rabbi here in New York, Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson. That was his cousin.
So,
And he organized, his idea was to save children, Orthodox children. And as we were Orthodox, so he was willing to take us.
So, how did the boys find you in the hotel?
They were just looking for the Teitelbaum sisters, and so they said, here they are. Everybody knew that we were all by ourselves there. And so this is how that happened. So we came, they took us to that hotel, from that hotel to that children's home, which was a little bit outside of Marseille, in a chateau.
Did you walk there?
No, they had like a minivan that took us there. It was a little bit further out of town.
Did they take any other children too?
No, only us. They knew about us, and this is whom they took at that time. And
Yeah. How did you get out of the hotel? What did they tell them? The gendarme or?
they arranged that Rabbi Schneerson was a French gendarme that they would let us out.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was arranged that we would be able to get out. He had good connections there with a French gendarme in Marseille. He was some kind of a person. In short, there were 60 children there that he tried to save, run that home. And he had quite a few young yeshiva boys that were Orthodox, and we had rations too. Every day, the gendarmes used to come to check us and to count how many children there were there. So many of these young boys were not registered, so they were hiding in the woods. And our job was every day to bring them food, because you never knew when the gendarme came. So we as younger children, our job was to stand, we took turns, like watching. It was a straight road, and you could see from far away that a police car was coming. And so we rushed in, and we told them the police is coming, and get all those yeshiva boys out hiding in the woods there. And so this is what happened. And then, of course, we had to divide the ration for all these. There were about 15 or 20 boys. And they were the ones that were teaching us. See, we studied with them. You had another organization which was very active in France, and until today, it's called OSE, O-S-E. And this organization is a long time in existence, and they, during the Second World War, had homes that they were children's homes that they were supporting. Because France were one of the last resort for parents to send their children, except the Kindertransport that went to England. So all of a sudden they had about 15,000 children in France that they had to organize to take care of. That parents sent their children from Austria, from Germany, from Hungary, from everywhere.
Did you?
From Holland, from Belgium.
In that home where you were, there were children from all over?
All over, and they all spoke different languages, and we had to learn to communicate with all of them. And they were young and older children, and there was a lot of problems, because it was the first time that they separated from their parents. They didn't know if they will see them again. They had to learn the language, they had to learn to, of course, the sanitary condition and food condition and all of that was as much as they could help it, you know. Mm-hmm. But it was not very, very good.
Did you hear from your mother at all?
Okay, now as far as my parents, my father, he was deported in August 28, 1942. He was deported from Drancy. Most of the people from the camps who were interned in these different camps were sent through Drancy to Auschwitz. And so he was deported from that Camp Septon, and it's transport number 25. I have the transport number. And he was deported from Auschwitz on the 28th of August, 1942.
How do you know the dates? And did you research them? Or?
Yeah, I did all for instance, this date I found in two different places. The Germans had very accurate records of everything, and so they had the transport numbers. I found through the Red Cross, the tracing, and also through Yad Vashem and the Holocaust Museum here. They had the names of the books and books. If you go to the Holocaust Museum, to the archives, you can find a lot of information. And so this is how I found it. My grandparents were deported from a town. They ended up going to a little village called Lacan when we separated. Mm-hmm. And we went to Orgueil. They went to a town called Lacaune, Lacan, in April 1941. They were picked up by the French gendarmes, and they were put into an intern camp called Saint-Sulpice. S-T, Saint, that's a short, yeah. Sulpice, S-U-L-P-H-I-C-E. In August 1942, and then were transported from Drancy to Auschwitz on September 9th, 1942, and transport number 30.
But you didn't know any of that was going on?
No. My mother left the village, and she left everything as is, took her clothes, and went to work as a maid with a Jewish family. And she didn't stay there too long. She was told that they can't keep her any longer. It was too dangerous.
And she had your little sister?
Please?
She had your little sister with her?
Yeah, okay. What happened to my little sister? She got better. They came twice to knock on the door, the gendarmes, and my mother wasn't home, and she said she can't open the door, and they have to come back when she will be home. And when she came home, she sent my younger sister away with a messenger, and she came to join us in Marseille. But this messenger was not arrested, and she came to bring her to Marseille. So we were together. My mother at the same time went to work for that Jewish family, and I think what she told me once was that they were part of the Rothschild family in southern France, and then they couldn't keep her any longer, and then she had an aunt from Germany who got married with a Frenchman who lived in Alsace-Lorraine. And so she got in touch with that aunt of hers, and she traveled to her place in Alsace.
Did you know she was going there? Or
No, I lost contact with my mother for a year. I had no idea where she was. I had no idea what happened to her. I didn't know where she was at all. And I don't know if she knew where we were.
And so was it a surprise when your little sister joined you?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I was very happy, and she at least could tell me that, she was with my mother until she left.
Yeah. She was 5 then? Or? How old was she?
My sister, yeah, right, yeah. She was, by that time, she was already 5, right.
Did you make any friends at the children's home?
Oh yeah, we very quickly did we make friends, and we tried to help each other, and yeah, but we didn't know really. See, it got to be more and more dangerous for us children, and we were dependent on strangers, and we really didn't know what will they do with us. See, you had no idea. Will the gendarmes, they came every day, maybe one day they'll come to take us away again. And I knew what it was to be taken away already because I was in that hotel. So I was very concerned about what will happen to us. And of course, the people in the hotel were taken away, and we kind of lucked out and stayed in the children's home. The children's home in Marseille, we stayed for a little while. I would say not very long. In November 1942 until July 1943, we were in Marseille. And then the German invaded southern France. And then it was a matter of time until they will take us all. See, the idea of the Germans was, first of all, to eliminate all the children as much as they could. And they did a fine job. 1.5 million children were killed in Auschwitz, in the concentration camps alone. So the children was one of the focuses. And of course, the Jewish resistance was how to save. So you put them in convent, and you put them in homes, and you put them in private families, and whatever was possible just to save those children. So here we were 60 of us. Rabbi Schneeson was working very hard that we should be able to come to the United States. And he had already arranged everything. And then the Germans moved into Marseille and took hold of that ship, and we had to escape. So within days, he had to get permission to move from one place to another. So he convinced the head of the police department in Marseille to get permission to get out of Marseille. And he arranged, and I have no idea how, he arranged for us, all of us, to move to a town which was close to Montauban. Toulouse was a big city. Montauban was next to it, half an hour away, or 45 minutes by train. And he took half of us on a train. The bigger children, I think, went on a train, and the younger children, he took us with some trucks. And
so were you in the back of the truck?
Yeah. And we arrived to that chateau, which was neglected, unbelievable, for years and years. Nobody lived there, in a very, very small village. And there were no sleeping facilities, nothing. And the French villagers really didn't want us. So they didn't even want to sell them some milk and eggs and vegetables, nothing. So he went and bought a cow. And so we had milk, and got chicken, so we had eggs, and we had raw vegetables. And there we arrived, all of us. We all got lice. We had to shave our heads.
Was this when you were on the trucks, or was it?
That when we arrived in that chateau, the living condition in that chateau.
Yeah. Were you really afraid when you were? Do you remember the journey to the chateau?
Yeah.
Was like, what was that like?
Was very crowded. But you know, we were not so afraid because we're together. At that time, we were together. Yes, I wrote a letter to my mother before we left Marseille, and my mother showed me that letter. She kept that letter because I wrote to her. She was hiding with her aunt.
Mm-hmm.
So she wrote to me. And so I wrote back to her and I said that I'm very worried that Rabbi Schneerson is making an arrangement for us to go to the United States, and that if I will go to the United States, how will she ever find us? And I was very concerned that I will never see her again because the United States is big. And so it didn't, and that letter she kept because I said, I don't want to go because you won't find me anymore, you know, that's kind of a thing. And so it didn't take place. One day she appears to that, in Demus. We stayed in a village in that chateau called Demus. Called Demus. And one day she appeared just off the blue. And she saw us, the way we were shaven. It took her, she took a very great danger to come. And I had no idea, you know, how she came. She took a train. She told me the story about how she met us. She went, my mother was a very beautiful woman, and men right away noticed her. And when she got off the train station, a man started to follow her. And she was very afraid that if he finds out who she is, that she's Jewish and so on, that she will get into trouble. So there was this farmer woman walking off the train, and she said, look here, I'm afraid to stay in a hotel. What should I do? She said, you know, I'm going to visit my daughter. Why don't you come with me? And so she did. And she slept with her in the same bed at her daughter's place, and they told her where to go. She walked about, she said, 10 kilometers to see us. She didn't have any papers. She just took a chance. She said, I have to go and see her, no matter what, to see my children, how they look. And she was very upset when she saw how we looked like, and she left. Again, after a few hours, she left. And I said, I really didn't know when we're going to see each other again, because I knew that things were not good. We had to move from Marseille, and you know, you knew that things were getting very bad for Jews. So I had no idea but she promised that she will take us out of there.
Why didn't she stay longer?
Why didn't she stay longer?
Yeah.
Where did she have to stay? You know, she didn't have where to stay. She just talked to the rabbi, and I was hoping that she will find a way to get us out of there. That's what she wanted.
Were you embarrassed to see your mother with your head shaven? Or?
Why?
I
was so surprised. I couldn't believe it. You know, that she was there with us for a little while.
How did she
look? She cried a lot to see us like that. Mm-hmm. And I told her not to worry, that the hair will go back and everything will be fine. And with that, she left. You know. Yeah.
So, were you? Did you say anything about taking care of your sisters to you?
Oh yeah, she always said, make sure to take care of your sisters, and you know, and I had to, when I wrote to her once in a while, I told her about what was going on. There was not much that I could tell her good. Mostly I complained, because it was bad. It was very bad.
Yeah. So did you, at the chateau, where the conditions were bad, what did you guys do to, get by, or did you have any responsibilities?
We all had responsibilities. We had responsibilities to cook and to wash the dishes and to clean. We had to do everything ourselves. As far as washing clothes, I think that everything was done by hand. You know, there was no washer and dryer and hang clothes, and you had to divide the clothes. I mean, it was not like this is mine and this is yours. I mean, there was nothing like that. And shoes, jackets, whatever you could find, you wore. No matter what color, no matter what size, no matter nothing. It just was something to put on to keep warm because it was cold. In these places, these chateaus were very, very cold.
Did you have anything left with you at that point that you brought from home?
Oh no, that was gone a long time ago. I didn't have anything that belonged to me personally, nothing.
What was that like?
Nobody else had. You know, I mean, you kind of didn't even think that there was something. You were happy that you found something that you can play with, or a piece of paper, or drawing, or crayons. I mean, crayons, no pencil. You know, I mean, you needed to save on paper. Everything cost money. You couldn't go and buy it in a store. You just have to depend what they give you, you know. So you were very, very dependent on what was given to you. And so you didn't have your own blanket. You didn't have anything that was private.
So when you got paper, were you excited that you could write too?
Well, then you did it for homework.
Mm.
You see that what you needed is a paper, and there was ration too. You couldn't use as much paper as you wanted. I think we were happy that we had some paper to write on. So that was how limited it was. Mostly we were happy that you had enough to eat. That's what was important. You know, you shouldn't go hungry.
But, so after, like, what happened with the chateau? Like, were you there for a while? Or?
Yeah, we were there for a while, and then one day, my mother arranged a messenger, and it was a woman. She was young. I don't know her name. And she came to pick us up, all three of us. They told us to take whatever we had that belonged to us, which was not much. And I mean, clothes that we should take with us, whatever we were wearing, and maybe another extra pair of something. And change of clothes. And then she took us and we went. She brought us to a town in southern France called Megève. Megève. The way you hear it, that's the way you spell. Megeve. Megève.
Do you remember what the woman looked like?
She was young. I think she had blonde hair, very kind, and tried to make us comfortable. And we went by train from where, that was a long ride. And she delivered us to my mother. She was already there with her aunt and her family. Her aunt had two daughters. One was as old as my younger sister, and the other one was a little older than I was. And so her aunt and husband and my mother. And the idea was that we were trying to, my mother and that family were trying to escape to Switzerland. And so we were trying to escape to Switzerland. And so this aunt had a brother-in-law who had a little house, a resort house. It was a ski resort. It's a very famous ski resort, beautiful ski resort. But we were not allowed to get out of the house because it was fenced in, and nobody was to know that we even were living in that house.
The entire, like both, including your aunt and uncle?
Yes, everybody. Except my uncle used to take his bicycle and go to get food for us. There were 2 bedrooms and a living room there. My mother and my sister and I slept in one bed, two at the head of the bed and two at the bottom of the bed. And we were waiting the whole summer until to cross the border illegally to Switzerland. It was not the easy thing to do, and you were hoping that it really will take place. You didn't know, you were dependent on these smugglers that really smuggled us through the border. So in September, somebody came with a van.
And this is in 1942?
And that was in September 9, 1943.
1943, okay.
Yeah. And he took us to a small village, a border town of Switzerland and France. The town is called Guy in French. And there were a young man and an older man, and he took us, and we were about 16 people in that van. There was one baby, and so they took us to that village, and we were waiting until it got dark. And it was a moonless night, and he said, okay, now it's time for you to go to where I bring you there. And he said, okay, and now there is barbed wire, and you're going to crawl under the barbed wire, all of you. And then he said to us, if you go to the right, there are the Germans. If you go to the left, there are the Swiss. So you go to the left and try to find the border, and then they, you know.
This is getting out of France, right?
Please?
This is getting out of France?
Yes, that was a border, that was the crossing. But he didn't come with us. He just told us, you know, we had to go under the barbed wire. They dropped our little backpack over the fence, and he said, and now you go. And my mother kind of fell, and she had a problem with her ankle. It swelled up. And she said, you go, leave me behind, and I don't care anymore, as long as you take care of my children. But my aunt said, no, we're going to wrap up your ankle, and you're coming with us. And so it was very dark, and you couldn't see anything. So the men decided that we better stay put where we are until the following day in the morning. And so we waited all night. It was very scary. It was dark, and you hear dogs were barking the whole time. And of course, you knew that these dogs were dogs that were sniffing in order to find people. So, but it was still under the Italian zone. So we knew that they wouldn't do anything to us. But still, they were barking, the dogs were barking. And so we waited until the morning, and then two men walked over to a farmhouse, and the baby, they had to stuff his mouth so he shouldn't cry. My younger sister thinks that he died, but I don't think he died. I don't think so. But anyway, we waited until the morning. The men went to get some milk for us to drink, and they found the Swiss border, and so we walked with them. When we arrived to the Swiss police took us to their headquarters and separated us from our families, the children, and then they started to question us for quite a while. And then we were put from one camp to another. They didn't know exactly what to do with us. And there were many, many people that were crossing the border.
So you were put into a children's camp? Or? What happened, or where did you stay the night after you got to
In
Switzerland?
a camp. We stayed in a camp. No, my mother was with us, but for the questioning, she had to fill out forms and we had to fill out forms. We had to be questioned. We didn't fill out form, but he was, the police, border police was questioning us. See, the thing was like that. They had a rule at that time that if one member of the family was a child that was under the age of 6, they would let the whole family in. So my sister's birthday was fake, a year younger. And so that daughter of that cousin, her birth certificate was also fake in 1 year. So they were under 6, and so this is how we got in, and we could stay in Switzerland. After we were arrested, they took us to the train station in Geneva, and we saw on the other side of the platform thousands and thousands of people, and they were all people that were sent back to the concentration camp directly from Switzerland, directly from Geneva. They didn't let them in, and they sent them with the trains to the concentration camp.
Because they didn't have a child, right?
Please?
Is it because they didn't have a small child in their family?
They did not have, that's right. They just didn't take everybody in. So these were the thousands of people that were sent from Switzerland, which is not very well known, but I saw it. It's known now. There are some documents about that.
Yeah, and you got, when you were initially, I guess, arrested, what was the questioning like? Were they nice?
Is this your real mother? Are you, some people took children in and it was not their child, how old, where did you come from, where were you born? Many, no end questions, just to make sure that we were the children of my mother.
Were they nice to you though, or were they?
Yeah, they gave us food, they gave us clothing even, and but they were asking my mother, is she Orthodox? So then what to do with us? So what they did really is they had camps for the refugees in Switzerland, and also my mother and my younger sister, we were divided. My mother and my younger sister were sent to a ski resort called in the French part of France, called Morgin, Morgin, in a hotel, and my younger sister was in the children's home, and my middle sister and I, we were sent to a children's home in a town called Bex, B-E-X, and that was quite far from my mother, but we could write letters, and we didn't have to be afraid anymore that they will arrest us or will take us. I mean, all of that was already gone. But you were not together, you see? So I was already 10 years old by that time, and my mother was up in the mountains, and I was, again, with a lot of children with different languages, speaking different languages from different countries, and it was the director of that home and his wife were very, very nice people. It was Orthodox. He owned a girls' school since World War I for Orthodox girls who used to get their higher education there. So he was a very, very understanding and kind man. And but there was ration. You had jobs. You had school. You had to clean your room. It was very regimented. All these places where we went one after another. the rooms where I had a room with my younger sister, we were two in a room, in most cases. The Jewish holidays were always very nice, and Friday night and so on. On one occasion, my middle sister stood up in the dining room, and she said, you know, after you eat, you always have a prayer that you say in the religious. And she stood up and she said, you want that in that religious prayer it said that you ate and you are satisfied. And so she said, I can't say that because I'm not satisfied, I'm still hungry. And so he laughed. He told that to my mother later on when she came to visit once, that she told him the way she felt, which was that you had to divide. See, he tried to take in as many children as he could, but didn't have enough ration for them because he had more children that he was allowed to have. So that place could take maybe 70 children, we are 150. So it was very cramped. So he got the ration for only 60 children, they had to divide it to 150. So that was always a big problem. So I remember getting a coupon once a week, and the biggest thing was to go to the bakery and buy a roll, a fresh roll, French roll, without nothing, just to eat it. That was, for this you had to walk a mile, but it was a treat. So, you know, he tried to be very nice. The name of the place was called Institut Asher. Institut Asher.
Did you have any friends there from any of the homes you've been in before? Or was it
No, nobody was there. There were always new children, new places, new acquaintances. But those children, I'm still friends today with. With those children from Institut Asher, many of them went to Israel, and I think twice or three times there was a reunion, and I was there in Israel, and they came from all over, from Belgium, from United States, from different friends, from different countries to meet with, and some of them were even teachers. And it was very interesting to see what happened to all those children, and when they grow up, where do they live, what do they do, and so on. So yes, I did meet with them.
So you stayed in contact with your mother at that point? And
Yeah, I saw my mother 4 times a year. On high holidays, on vacation, I had to travel with my sister 4 different means of transportation. I had to walk to the train station, then I had to change at the bigger train, in a bigger city, to take another train up to the mountains, and then to take a bus or funicular all the way up to where she lived. And I have some pictures here to show you what we looked like, and Mougin, all of that. So we stayed there until 1945, till the end of the war.
So, did you, were you still thinking, were you still wondering about your father, or did you?
Well, the hope was always that we'll see each other again, I mean, I didn't know anything about the concentration camps or the extermination camps. That was not, we knew that it was very bad. I think the adults knew more, but I think my mother knew. Of course, once the war was over, you had these lists and lists of people that were still alive, and every day or twice a day you went to see if anybody that you knew was on that list. And there was nobody of our family that was on that list.
What was school like there at the...
Where? In Institut Asher was very good. We learned a lot. It was, we had to learn a lot. I think this is where I learned the most during the war. Was, crowded, but maybe 40 children. We had to get up in the morning, make our beds, have breakfast, and then go to classes. After classes, we had jobs. Some worked in the kitchen, some had to set the table, some had to serve, some had to clean the dishes, some had to work in the garden. Some had to clean bathrooms, some, the dining room. All of it we had to do. We had to be self-sufficient, and they came to check the rooms, if it was clean. With my middle sister, I had a big problem. She was very messy, and so my room, I had to do it for her. So.
Did you ever get in arguments with her?
Plenty.
Like even when you were in like a really frightening situation, would you guys get along then, or would you sometimes still argue? Or?
Well, and it was not easy. There were times when I resented it, although I love her, but I resented it. She was in some kind. She didn't fit not in the younger group and not in the older group, and so I was put in the younger group because of her, and so I kind of resented it because I couldn't be with my own age group. So finally they made out of me a Girl Scout. So I was in charge of the younger group as a Girl Scout leader. So that worked out.
What was your favorite job to do at the school, at the institute that you were?
Institute Asher. My favorite job. You know what? I really don't remember because they switched it so much around. I liked to work in the garden. I really liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm. What did you do for fun?
Play different games, hopscotch I think we had, and with rope, that stuff. We took some nice walks we took some nights. They had a lot of forest, and they were growing wild strawberries and raspberries, and so we had these kind of activities. We were singing. We learned to sing different Jewish songs. We were preparing for the holidays. What was decoration? Always very, very nice. I remember the Seder was, the Seder was always a very festive thing. We had to make our own matzah. So that kept us busy and cleaning up for the kitchen and to prepare for the holiday. It kept us going. I mean, we were part of whatever was going on there. That was whatever we did, this is what we had. And that really taught us quite a few good lessons.
Let's go back a little bit. Of all the messengers that helped you along the way, like which one do you remember the most? From place to place. The people that took us from one place to another. You know what? I really don't remember so much. I know that the man from Marseille, was the one that really I kind of felt did the most for my sister and me. The one who was arrested?
The one that was arrested, right.
Did you, and I was interested, when you were on the train platform in Switzerland and you saw all the people
Yes.
who were getting sent back,
Right.
did you know what was going on, or did you? Yeah.
I asked my mother, and she told me. And then I said, my God, are we lucky? Are you sure we won't get sent back? I mean, will they do the same thing to us? And what will happen to us? You thought that you arrived to a safe place, but you really didn't. And you didn't. Later on, I found out, because once the war was over, you couldn't stay in Switzerland. They did not allow the refugees to stay in Switzerland. So we had to move out. We had to leave. So that was a very big question, what to do.
What was your favorite home that you had, like, after leaving Belgium?
A poem?
Or your favorite home? All the places you stayed.
Well, I think the one in Switzerland, at Institut Ascher, is the one that I remember the most. And it was the safest place, really. So that made me, that was one that I made friends there. I could see my mother. It was already, I felt much safer there than any other place. In France, it was just to run. You were running for all the time, escaping, not knowing will you be caught and when will you be caught, and you change names. And I think it was a matter of luck, the way I see it.
Like, in France, when you were, like, was there ever a time when you felt safe?
No. In France, not at all. In France, I knew that the gendarmes, they were very dangerous. As a matter of fact, many years after we went to visit my sister and I in Paris, and I wanted to ask direction, and I saw a French gendarme. I said, I'm not talking to him. I can't talk to this person. I can't trust him. And my sister laughed, I mean, it's already 4 years after the war. What are you talking about? So this feeling of not trusting a French policeman, and also being very angry because he took away my father and my grandparents, and all these French gendarmes were very nasty, terrible.
What was it like to, okay, so you were in France for 3 years?
Right.
Like, what was it like for you to not feel safe for 3 years? Is that,
right.
Is that hard for you? And, like, I know you were taking care of your sister too. I can't imagine taking care of a sister in that situation.
Well, you know what? I felt very responsible. I learned very early to be very responsible about what I'm doing, about what I'm saying, about responsible toward my sisters. I think I felt even much more responsible after my father was gone. And I had very close ties to my mother and my mother to me. And later on, when we had to decide what to do after the war in Switzerland, when we were told that you can't stay there, and within 6 months you have to leave, there was a big question what to do. Where should we go? Should we go back to Belgium? And maybe our father will come back to Belgium too, and then we might see him again. Or should we go to Palestine? Because my mother had her siblings there, and my father had a sister that moved from Antwerp to. She was a nurse in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, and I said to my mother, at that time I was already 12 years old, and I said to my mother, you know what? I don't want to stay in this part of the world. They really don't want us Jews. They really don't want us. We shouldn't stay here. So we decided to go to Palestine.
Okay. The next interview we'll talk about what happened after the war.
Right.
But out of your memory, like, what was the scariest time for you? Like, out of overall, like.
Well, I think the scariest time for me was when we left Belgium, the train, the experience of bombarding the trains, when we were arrested and went to a camp and lived there, and it was very clear that we won't stay in that camp, so what will happen to us? See, Mike all the time was following the thing of what will happen, and how much else will be taken away, and who else will be taken away, and what will happen to me and my sisters. this was always a question, because, you know, that's what happened to us, you know. And then, of course, when my father was arrested, and then when I had to, this man, I didn't have anywhere to turn when he wasn't there, and I had to go stand there in the street by myself, and taking that strange man, which I really didn't know what he's going, was he the right man, or who knows what he would do to me and my sister. You know, I really didn't know what to do. And when we arrived to Marseille, to be in that hotel on our own, until we got, somebody picked us up, you know.
Did you think that someone was going to, at that point, did you think that someone was going to pick you up?
I was sure that we are going to go with all these other people wherever they're. And of course, how will my mother know where we are? You know, that's what it was. How will she find out? And my mother never wanted to know what happened to us. I never told her that story.
Why do you think that was?
She didn't want to know. It was too hard for her to know. So she never wanted to know.
Did you try to tell her, like, after it happened, like the next time you saw her?
I tell you, my mother didn't want to talk about it. She never talked about it. We have a tape of my daughter, much later in life, made a tape of when she told the story, and I helped her with that, especially every time when she talked about the war, she got blank. She just, you know, she tried to forget. So that was very hard for her. So we went a little bit through about that, but no, it was too difficult.
Would she tell you, like when you'd see her during, you know, in France, when you were separated and she'd come to see you, would she tell you what she'd been doing, or would she just ask you questions, or?
She really didn't want to. You see, you have to understand, it was a miracle really that we saw each other. And I never knew when she left if we'll see each other again, you know. I mean, the mere fact that she left us and couldn't take us with her, you know. I understood. She said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't take you." She never told them that she was hiding on the attic there with her aunt, you know. And people bought her food so that she could survive, until they arranged to go to Megève and then to Switzerland. And that was through her aunt and her husband that at all we were able to do that. If not them, I don't think that my mother could have done it on her own. You know, so. But I would say that there were some Catholics people, or those people that crossed us the border were non-Jews that were willing to help because they felt that that was inhumane what was done. The lady in Montauban, there is a very interesting story about the woman who, the Bishop of Montauban wrote a letter to all the churches that were under his, I don't know how you call it, archdiocese, right? Telling them that they should help the Jews because it was unconscionable what was going on. And in his, where he lived, he had a printing machine that was printing false papers. And if the German would have known that, they would have arrested him. The woman who was working with him said, "I don't want you should send this letter. I'm going to go on a bicycle." And she biked to 42 churches in the area and told them, on this and this Sunday, you're going to read it. And she didn't want to that it should be mailed because she was afraid that some collaborators with the Germans, with the Vichy government, will not deliver that later because they were opening the mail. So she was she rode that bicycle. That bicycle is hanging today at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. So this is one example of a non-Jew that was helping Jews. And she got righteous among the nations in Jerusalem, and so.
I was thinking when you were talking about when you were living with your family in the chateau in France, when it was you and your parents and your sisters, and you were going to school at that point, right?
Right.
So, like, did you, before that time, I know, like, you'd have, I'm trying to get my question here. Like, at what point did you start really not trusting non-Jewish people or talking to them? Like,
very early, because the minute I realized that I had to go and go shopping because my parents couldn't go, and I had to do it for them.
So that was in Montauban, like with
in Villemeux, that's the first stop after the train where my mother couldn't go out to shop, but I had to go to do it. I realized right away that we were not welcome. We were refugees, and it was. They could do anything they wanted with us. We were not welcome there. We were not citizens. We were refugees. That's it.
Did anyone ever say anything to you when you were out shopping by yourself?
They got a big. It was interesting for them to see the children going shopping. Although I was not the only one. There were many other children that used to go shopping for their parents there. Yeah, you grow up very early. I grew up very, very early. And whatever my mother told me what to do, I understood exactly why. So I really knew that we had to fight for our survival, I think. This is what it was. And mostly be careful not to be caught. That was the most important thing.
Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left on the tape.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we missed or you wanted to say?
Well, I tell you what, why don't I again show you some pictures that I collected?
Okay.
Maybe that will give you a little bit. So let's see what I have here. Okay, that is, here I have, this is a wedding picture of my parents.
Where did you find that one? Where did you find that?
We enlarged it.
Oh, did your mother keep it with her, or how did you?
No. This is somebody had that picture and they gave it to us. Yeah. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then here, I want to show you some other very cute, some of the pictures. Okay. This is me with my grandmother in Germany in 1931. Okay, this is a picture when my sister was born and I went to be with my grandparents. So that's a picture. This is a picture of me in Belgium. Okay, this is a picture of 4 generations. This is in Germany. So I'm the baby. This is my mother. This is her mother. This is my grandmother. And this is her mother. This is my grandmother's mother. This is a picture in Germany. This is my grandmother in Germany with her brother and her sister-in-law on vacation. This is the summer 1931. They were deported. These are my grandparents who were deported. Let me see for a minute. Okay, here. This is my mother in Switzerland, in Montjean, with my 2 sisters and me. The small one stayed. She was the one, and then my middle sister and I.
Your middle sister was Malka? Okay.
Malka is this one here. Yeah. Malka today has 9 grandchildren. These are the 3 of us in Mogen too, in the winter time. This is me in Institute Asho. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. These are my 2 sisters. This is Malka and Bella. Okay. And this is already in Israel in 1946. Okay. And this thing here is my parents before they got married. That was in 1931, I think. Yeah. Okay. And I think that's it.
Okay. Stop the tape.
So that gives you a little idea about what we looked like, when we were young.
Your father's a very handsome man.
Yeah.
Yeah, very handsome.